As I always like to point out, in what almost feels like a desperate attempt to get you to believe that I'm not like other girls, it seems like every time I want to make a video about something that is being consumed by the general zeitgeist, I always have to preface it with, like, usually we don't do that around here. Okay, usually we're talking about things that are a hell of a lot more niche and that nobody cares about. And there are a few reasons for this. Like, the main one is that I just don't want your subscription box at home to be filled with your 6 favorite NBA creators all making the same Luka video, right? Or all making the same Embiid or Jokic or Giannis video or LeBron, whoever it is. Because the truth is you really only need to watch, like, one of those, because they're all just going to be the same takes about how good they are or how, you know what I mean? But that being said, as the calendar turns to the shortest month of the year, whether you're on TikTok, you're going to be on Twitter, you're going to be on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, no matter where it is, the whole Jeremy Lin thing is going to come up without question, especially now because it's the 10-year anniversary of Linsanity. I wanted to visit it today, mainly because I've never really done my Jeremy Lin spiel with you guys, and also because I know my demographic, and I know that while some of you were alive, some of you just, like, don't really remember it. And it's something that was being talked about like a week or two ago over on the Motown Noah Discord. The link will be in the description. You know, just like random instances of like, hey, how really good was this player that really didn't play that long ago, but like I'm only a 17-year-old, so I don't really know. And it's always interesting to me to think like, do these kids think we were watching Jeremy Lin on, like, black and white TVs? No, we weren't. It was 10 years ago, so it really wasn't that long ago, but the most interesting piece of it to me is, like, if Linsanity happened today, it would be a lot easier for all of us to consume. It would be a lot easier for all of us to log in and go to whatever our favorite illegal streaming service site is and watch that game. But 10 years ago, those illegal streaming service sites, they didn't exist. Right, so the only way that you were able to participate in Linsanity is A, if the Knicks were playing in a nationally broadcasted game, or B, you just kind of had to rely on like the bottom ticker of whatever game it was that you were watching, or you just go over to ESPN, you know, when you're getting ready for school the next morning, turn on SportsCenter, and like 9 of the top 10 players are just going to be whatever the hell Jeremy did the night before. And it's especially bizarre when you realize that the night that it happened was and this isn't news, but the night that it happened, his agent had called him and was like, hey, dude, I know you're not getting a bunch of playing time. They are going to play you tonight. And if you don't do anything, like, you're probably going to get waived. And the pressure of that, because this isn't just a dude who has had hoop dreams his whole career. This is a dude who is playing on arguably one of the most recognizable teams and brands in the world, in arguably one of, if not the most recognizable arena in the world, or in North America. Like, you're playing for the Knicks, right? The stakes are pretty high. The Knicks were stinking at the time. They had lost like 11 of their last 13. And Jeremy Lin goes in there, and I'm thinking of like the pressure, equal pressure that I have felt in my life was when I was like 17 and I was working at Nike, and I had a problem where I kept getting shortchanged. And for those of you who don't know, it's basically when you just get, you as a cashier, you basically get like duped into giving back more money than you were supposed to. It doesn't really matter. But I kept getting shortchanged, and the execs at Nike were getting really pissed at me, and they sat me in a room and they're like, if you get shortchanged one more time, we're probably going to have to fire you. And guess whose ass didn't get fired? Because I never got shortchanged after that. And man, dude, Jeremy just goes out on a nightly basis. This is the dude that we've never heard of. Okay? You had never heard of Jeremy Lin up to that point unless you were like a Palo Alto native. You know, resided in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the craziest thing about Jeremy Lin's career that people just don't really talk about, because ultimately it doesn't really matter that much, but like Jeremy's senior year of high school, they go 32-1, and then they win a D2 state championship in the state of California against Mater Dei. So, like, even if he didn't do anything in the league, like, you beat Mater Dei. And I love the story. I get we have to add adversity to it because Jeremy Lin faced, I mean, just an unfathomable amount of adversity. That much is absolutely true. But I just love that, like, he leaves high school and then couldn't get a D1 offer. Like, no one in the Pac-12, like, nobody wanted him. Nobody in the Mountain West. And so it's just kind of like I guess he just, like, had to go to Harvard. It was like, I guess I can't play D1 ball. I guess I'm just going to go to Harvard. And you don't need to explain to me like the tier lists of like, yeah, Ivy League basketball isn't really where it's at, right? It's not really happening there. But it's just very funny to me that like that was the fail-safe for Jeremy Lin. I guess I'll just go to Harvard. And while he's at Harvard, you have this camera crew following him around, doing this little documentary on him, because the truth and reality was there were a lot of people rooting for him. Jeremy Lin, people did know who he was because you have this Asian American American guy who has these hoop dreams, who wants to make it to the league. And ultimately, yeah, that matters. It matters because of how many people were writing him off. And if you want to fast forward the timeline a little bit, it was Daryl Morey speaking very candidly about it. I think it was when he was like assessing the free agent pool after Jeremy's Knicks contract was up. And sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here, but after his Knicks contract was up and Daryl Morey was like, do we want to bring this guy in for a contract? They were trying to measure who had the fastest, like, 2 steps with the ball in their hands. And the eye test was always telling people that Jeremy Lin wasn't athletic, but you know who had the fastest first step out of anybody in that class? It was Jeremy Lin. So Daryl Morey was like, oh shit, we have to go get this guy. And guess who went and got that guy? Daryl Morey. But anyways, back to me getting shortchanged and Jeremy Lin having a bunch of pressure. Like, the dude just goes out, and there is inherent value in being a guy that is like one of those grunts of the NBA, one of those grunts of the D League, right? At the time, it was the D League. Remember when the NBA was like, hey, it's the D League, but we're going to change it to the G League? And we're all like, that's stupid. Nobody's going to call it the G League. And now to look back and be like, to call it the D League, it feels like you're talking about something that isn't real. It feels like you're talking about something that is like, it's just a 2K storyline. You know what I mean? Pretty sure Carmelo was also hurt at the time. And isn't that also part of why some people are convinced that Jeremy left New York? Was Carmelo was like, I refuse to have this fucking guy on the team. Like, I'm Carmelo Anthony. This is my basketball team. And that's not to say that the team would have ever have been Jeremy's. It only was at the time because the dude, again, this is what I was about to say. There is so much inherent value in kind of being one of those guys that people are like, who is this guy? Because there's not a lot of tape on you. You know what I mean? These guys haven't played you before. They don't know what you're about to do, and they don't know what you have to lose. Granted, a lot of these guys are in similar circumstances to a certain extent. But, like, the guy was sleeping on his friend's couch when he was doing all this. He was getting stopped at Madison Square Garden because they were like, you're not a player. Like, you don't have access here. And he's like, no, I'm literally on the roster. And it's not inconceivable to think that, like, a guy was sleeping on his friend's couch when he was in the NBA, because guys do that all the time, especially if you're drafted by, like, a hometown team, or you're just drafted at least locally from where you went to college. Like, guys will stay with their parents for the first, like, year or two that they're in the league. It's not uncommon, but it's still wild to think that dude went out and put up 38. He's the one he did what to the Jazz? He did what to the Lakers? You know what I mean? He did what to the Raptors? It was a time in my life where I had shifted over to the Tigers. I was watching the Red Wings full time because the Pistons had just traded Chauncey, and I didn't care that we got Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson hated us. He hated it here. The Pistons were dead to me. You traded my favorite player. The band had broken up at that point, and then boom, from the rafters, Jeremy Lin comes in and is like, no, for the next 15 years of your life, you are going to be obsessed with tertiary players. You are going to spend so much time focusing on the the grunts of the NBA, the dudes who just try and work really, really hard, and then one day it pays off and they have this just unreal monster stretch. Now, it's pretty much been unparalleled up to this point. There's really never been like this equal to Linsanity. And honestly, I don't know if there ever will be. I will say it's probably the easiest time to do it than it ever has been, because like people don't, I'm not going to say that people don't care about playing defense, because that's such a lazy take. And the people who say that, the national pundits who say that on TV, or the YouTubers who say it, or your favorite TikTokers who say it, like, that's not real. But at least scoring there's so much advantage to being an offensive threat today, where it's not inconceivable to think that it could, but I think the circumstances were such, and the stage, the scale of everything was such. Again, this is the Mecca, right? Even if you hate the Knicks, even if you're one of those people, it's like you have to at least recognize the stage of everything. And that's what Jeremy Lin just lightning fast. The second that he brought the ball across half court, man, like the way that he was able to assess everything in real time over those 2 weeks was crazy. And he was good at it for his entire career. And I think people kind of shit on him a little bit too much, because there was this precedent that was set for him, that this is what you were getting out of Jeremy Lamb. I'm actually going to leave that in. And so when he's playing for the Hornets, or he's playing for the Lakers, or he's playing for the Rockets, whoever it was, right, there was always this in the back of your head, like, is there a chance that this dude is going to go out and give us 31? And then when he only gave you 7, you were like, oh, this was a waste of $25 million. It's like, stop. But he'd get above the break, and he would take 2 dribbles, and then he would do that little, he would do the little spin, and then his body control at the rim honestly wasn't that great. Sometimes it just felt like, bro, he's just throwing shit up, and like it's kind of just going in. And you have those nights in the league But like to do it so methodically and to do it against players that like he was doing it against John Wall. Okay. And this is like, what is this? So 2012, like the Troop 41 song, John Wall, like that's still on the charts. Okay. John Wall is like the new kid on the block and everybody loves John Wall. And Jeremy Lin is like crossing his shit up and making his knees slap together. You can't think of an easier guy or an easier story to root for. And that's why when it all finally came full circle, and he was on that, 2019 Raptors team, and he finally got his ring. And I don't give a damn if he didn't get minutes. I don't give a damn if he wasn't like this integral part of the roster, this really important glue guy. However you viewed his role on that team, it was just really, really refreshing and kind of like, it was, you're happy for Kyle Lowry and you're happy for Kawhi and you're happy for the city of Toronto and whatever. But there is also that piece of it where it's like, man, Jeremy Lin got his ring. I probably should have mentioned on like the whole expectation thing too, when you set that precedent that, this is who you are and you're doing all this stuff in the Garden, it's like, okay, well, he goes to Houston and then after Houston, he's playing for the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers with Kobe Bryant. And I know we've all seen the clip a million times of him, waving Kobe off, and it's this whole thing. We don't need to revisit that story again. But this is just one of those journeymen. I gotta bring Jeremy down a few pegs. I think I'm doing a little bit too much. Probably the worst hairstyles in the league. Remember the Mohawk? God, Jeremy. I don't know, man. Let's do a buzz. Let's just do a buzz next time. But for me, at least, he kind of opened up this like. Again, just this niche of tertiary players and what their value can be and how they can turn your season around, right? And when your back is against the wall, like what some of these players are able to pull off and what they're able to do. And that's why, today I have lists like the Motown Noah All-Star Team, which is something that I don't release publicly anymore, but it's always a list of players who are these, these C-tier, these D-tier players in the league where it's just like what they do is almost exclusively on the margins. But if they catch fire, shut shit down. The early to mid 2010s, those Knicks teams were so fun too because Jeremy Lin is just throwing lobs to like Tyson Chandler and JR and Amon were there, right? At the time. Again, you had Carmelo who was like, I mean, come on. If you didn't like Knicks Mello, I mean, you're probably respectfully a loser. You also had Mike Woodson, whose beard you could always see. Like the Garden is funny because it's always where you see those pictures of people who are like literally sitting in the rafters. Even if you were sitting up in the rafters, you would have been able to see Mike Woodson's beard. Things already weren't going well for him, right? He was playing for the Warriors. He sucked. Plays for the Knicks. He sucked. And then he was awesome. And then he just kind of becomes this journeyman, and he plays for a bunch of different teams. He's up and down between the NBA and the G League. After, even when he is an established NBA player, he's still kind of bouncing, back and forth. And it's just, again, it's just one of those stories that I'll always root for. And one of those players that, anytime he's on a podcast, even if I've never heard of the podcast before, I'm going to listen to it. Now, admittedly, I am kind of tired of hearing, like, do we need, 7 documentaries about this? Probably not. I think HBO came out with one like a year ago, and I was like, didn't we already cover this? Wasn't one being made like in real time while this was happening? It's kind of like time is a flat circle. Look at how this all worked out. It's kind of like when your favorite NBA YouTuber makes a video that we all know about. We know what's going on, and then this other favorite YouTuber does it, and then this other YouTuber does it, and they all just kind of say the same thing.